All right, let us talk about Ernest Hemingway. And to be completely honest with you guys, whenever I think, I have a love-hate relationship with Ernest Hemingway for various reasons. But whatever I think about him, I think of that beer commercial, the most interesting man in the world, and I imagine Ernest Hemingway to be that guy. He undeniably during his lifetime and after was portrayed and seen as this very macho kind of man in a very stereotypical way, which we'll talk about in a second. But despite his kind of stereotypical macho man uh, persona, he was a deeply sensitive writer who really captured the sense of alienation that haunted the lost generation. And while he was this kind of womanizing, misogynist, outdoorsy, bullfighting man, like his writing and his writing really encompasses the pain and suffering that human beings inflict on each other, and that matter concerned him a great deal and surfaces time and time again in all of his writings. But an interesting man nonetheless, Ernest Hemingway, there he is in his later years, was born in Oak Park, Illinois, just outside of Chicago, on July 21st, 1899. As a young boy, his father taught him how to hunt and fish in the untouched wilderness of northern Michigan. Um, he graduated from the public school system in 1917 and followed his interest in writing to the Kansas City Star, where he served as a young reporter. At the same time, World War I was raging all over Europe, and because he is this young, masculine kind of guy, he very badly wanted to enlist in the army, but his poor eyesight prevented him from doing so. So instead, he becomes a an ambulance driver for the Red Cross in Italy. Shortly, about 1 month after his arrival, Hemingway was badly wounded in both legs by an Austrian mortar shell and immediately afterwards by machine gun fire while carrying a wounded Italian soldier to safety. This injury disputably gave him the title of the first American casualty of the war. Hemingway was coined a hero for his actions on the battlefront and was awarded the Italian Silver Medal of Valor. He he had to have surgery to repair the 200 shards of shrapnel in his legs, and it was successful. And while he was in the hospital, he fell in love with a nurse there, but he wrote to her daily, but uh, she kind of crushed his heart by saying that she was too old for him. But anyways, he returned home from Italy and eventually took a job with the Toronto Star Weekly and married his first of four wives, Hadley Richardson, in 1921. The couple moved to Paris, where a bunch of, like I was saying, expatriate writers went, and he began writing extensively as a journalist and covered subjects like the Geneva Conference, bullfighting, and fishing, all of which interested him greatly later in life. Um, he began, while he was in Europe, he wrote some of the most prominent landmarks of the 20th century, including The Sun Also Rises, A Farewell to Arms, and For Whom the Bell Tolls. Later in life, Hemingway struggled with deteriorating health, four different marriages, and deep depression, which eventually caused him to commit suicide in his home in Idaho, July 2nd, 19 1961 at the age of 61. So he lived a adventure filled life of life. I mean, he had a house in Cuba. He was all over the place, doing the things that he loved to do. He went to Africa and hunted, big game hunted, and did all of those macho kind of things. But his deteriorating health, as a lifelong alcoholic, and depression, did him in the end. His writing is uh, he mainly depicts two types of characters, and the first kind of character are men and women of from deprived by World War I of faith in the moral values, and the second type are men of simple character and primitive emotions. The ones that we're going to be reading about are the first type. Whether you like him or dislike him, there is no denying that Ernest Hemingway was one of the foremost authors of the 20th century. He really helped redefine literature through his use of style. And when he was at the Kansas City Star, remember I told you guys he was a journalist. Um, he learned how to use short sentences, short paragraphs, and putting an emphasis on compression, simplicity, and clarity. And he used these ideas um, from that day forth, and he even is quoted as saying that those were some of the best rules I ever learned for the business of writing. I've never forgotten them. And as illustrated in all of his works, Hemingway tossed aside 19th century Victorian prose and reshaped it into a clear, clean, and straight to the point prose, which focuses on action rather than emotion. Some have said that his writing is defined as hard boiled. And that means to be unfeeling, callous, cold hearted, cynical, unemotional. However, Hemingway is really able to there's an incredible amount of power, originality, and excitement and emotion in his very concise, action-driven prose. His iceberg principle, which I want to come back to, guided literature in an ideal fashion, and that helped him earn a Nobel Prize in Literature for his quote mastery of the art of narrative demonstrated in The Old Man and the Sea. Um, and the influence that he has exerted on contemporary style, end quote. So he earns a Nobel Prize for Literature for The Old Man and the Sea, and if you are interested, you should totally check out his acceptance speech for the Nobel Prize. It's really quite I don't know, it's kind of cool to hear his voice and hear him talk about his writing. But the iceberg principle is really what characterizes Ernest Hemingway's style. And when you think about an iceberg, as Hemingway would have said, only 1/8 of the iceberg is above the surface. And what that means is that Ernest Hemingway believed that eliminating the content that is apparent and the meaning that is obvious only strengthens your writing. So if you look at the definition of the iceberg principle or the theory of omission, um, the story, right? The surface of the story, what you see is gestures, body language, words, right? But underneath all of that is everything else. So this coined theory is basically about omitting parts of a story, details that the writer and reader both inherently know, so that the story's prose will be shortened and strengthened. Ernest Hemingway believed that writing in this fashion forms a stronger bond with the reader because the author has confidence that the reader is knowledgeable and intuitive enough to pick up on the pieces that were omitted. Um, and essentially, this belief in the true meaning of the story shouldn't glisten on the surface, but rather be found embedded within the structure of the story. So the iceberg theory describes that only 10 to 20% of the story is directly revealed through the prose, in comparison to an actual iceberg. That is usually the portion floating that is visible to the water. So it's, and this is probably one of the reasons why I have a hard time with Hemingway, is because of this iceberg theory. It takes a while to kind of get his meaning, catch his drift, so to speak. But um, that is Ernest Hemingway, his writing style, and this kind of introduction to the characteristics of his writing. But a fun fact for you cat lovers out there, that Ernest Hemingway, he had a house in Key West, Florida, which is now kind of a museum for him, and he was a cat lover. And this Key West property that is the museum, and it's not only known for the celebrity of Ernest Hemingway, but it is famous because it has a resident population of polydactyl. Yes, polydactyl. That means that it has six toes, six-toed cats that are referred to as Hemingway cats. They call they live there. It's their home. These polydactyl cats are incredibly rare, but Ernest Hemingway, he was given this cat named Snow White. It was given to him as a gift in the 1930s, and the gift was from a sea captain. And anyways, to this day, many of Snow White's descendants roam the grounds of Hemingway's former house. And because Key West is so small, um, most of the cats on the island are related, and about half of the cat population at the museum have those polydactyl or extra toes. So anyways, that is my little fun fact about Ernest Hemingway, for a man who was, so tortured and uh, masculine. He had a fond spot in his heart for these six-toed cats. So I'm going to pick up here with Hills Like White Elephants and do kind of an introduction to the story. So stay with me, and I'm almost done for my lecture for this week.